Today I got something special for you. It is cat. But more importantly than kit, I have a new deck to show you. So, I did this deck a long time ago. If you've kept track of my fights with Rustic, then you'll probably know what this deck is. But I know I've been silent for a while. I was originally planning to participate in the Rumble 2022, but due to work discrepancies, I was not able to attend, unfortunately. But instead, I saw the ban list and started working on my new deck. So, I know some people are only here for the build, so I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes this deck special, what I can expect in the future, and you know how it is. So, as usual, we got a V Premium starter, not getting worker ant, really doesn't matter, just has to be a V starter. You get your typical triggers for Riddled Honey, Less Favor, Quinagria. We're going to be running the Battler F and Draw Sentinel. So, pretty standard lineup. I decided to run Battler F because there's a pretty good soul cost in the deck. Stride Putter's obvious, Less Favor's really good. The deck still wants draw pressure, so it's just kind of one of those things. You have a lot of countercharge options in the deck already, and Makeup Widow doesn't synergize that well with the deck, so that's not going to really do out that well. God. Origin Moth, pretty simple. It counts as a grade 3 in the deck in the soul, so you can search it with Dorcas, you can search it with another grade 3 searcher, use a free countercharge essentially. Just a really good card. Then we're running, I don't have this model, 3 Butterfly Officer. I said we don't need Makeup Widow because we have enough countercharge. This is why. It's just an extra card to give boost and power. And this card also synergizes really, really well with a new card that we got, so, and I'll talk about that later. Ugh, I'm so sorry I don't have these in order. For Dorcas, we're only going to be having one focused grade 3, so grade 3 consistency is important. And the reason we run Dorcas instead of Magnetic Hornet is because Dorcas has more base power than any other grade 1 in our lineup. And you could run Jerk or Phantom Black, but that uses your hand pressure, so you may want a more draw trigger center build if you want to do something like that. But this just makes build really consistent. Lastly, for the grade 1 lineup, we have 2 Brilliant Blister, really good for the game rush, basically covers for Sentinels, just a very powerful card, and it can get you hand pressure back when you're behind in the game. Just a very good card. Giraffon basically replaces Killer Leaf as the mandatory grade 2 draw 1 card. It gets a lot of power, and it can capture opponents when they're not paying attention and they keep trying to roll on graveyards. Some people might say that's like a rule lawyering, whatever, but I would say capitalize on it. In a real professional game, if you're not playing casual, I would say, hey, you can't move that because it's in the same column as driver. Because, I mean, otherwise that skill is literally pointless, right? Aurora Beetle. The reason you run it is because it's a grade 2 that's free. I've also talked about it before when this card came out. But you can also place them in the back row, wrist each other, and then it paralyzes. And it's up boosting both columns. Just a really good general card. Especially if you don't want to consume too many costs in your deck. And if you haven't read the title, this kind of gives away our build. Since we're playing Flagburg, we're running Forest Sentence Assault. It's true that you're not running right line, so you're not going to have it consistently. But it's not about consistently, it's about the fact that you have a 10k power grade 2. You have a free rear guard. And it restands. And well, that's really important, but I'll try to get into that more later. So this is probably the part that people don't know if they play Megacolony is this is the new build. So you don't necessarily run this card just because it's a grade 2, because it has an auto ability on attack. You can't really use it when you stride, but you can Persona Ride, which gives you permanent 10k. And there are cards like Ascendance Assault that make it so that you can restand when your Vanguard is Flagship. So you can use a lot of the cards that paralyze or give power, like Butterfly Officer, and just kind of go off with these. And there's more to that, but I'll get to that in a bit. Three Inlet Pulse. This is a flagship card, obviously, because it looks like an Aqua Force card. At the end of the first battle that this card attacked a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if it was the first battle, so last one stand it. It's Aqua Force. But more importantly, at the end of your turn, if the total number of attacks this turn made this turn was 4 or more, you can put it into the soul and draw a card. So let's say you have Flagburg, call this. I'll do that in a bit, because honestly, we got one more slot. It's Interception Scissors. You're playing 4 Genomoth, and you're playing 3 Butterfly Officer. So you can recycle this whenever any color from deck with Dora if you really need. It's not that big a deal. Plus, since we are playing a multi-attack deck, it's very likely that we're going to be dealing damage before the Vanguard attacks. So, worst case scenario, you play this card to like a back row column, but that doesn't really hurt us that much. So, there so that I can show an example later. Alright, G-Zone time. You guys know that I already have 2 Dora. I need to order more. I just haven't done it yet. It's kind of the basic stride for the deck. But we have other options, thankfully. For Overwhelm, this is a lot better with Flagburg since you're going to be doing multi-attacking. So if you have the GB3, you're going to be getting a lot of power, and you're going to get resources so that you can fill out your multi-attack board really well. So it just has a lot more value in this deck than before, especially since Inlet Pulse has to be the first attack of the turn. You know him, you hate him, Mob Terrandus. If your opponent is in a position where they like have a totally flat board and they totally rely on calling rear guards, then you just play this and they cry. Pretty simple, right? And finally, we have the new one, Malegnantes. So this is a new one, so I'm gonna read it. I really like this a lot. Act, Vanguard or G-Zone. If this unit is on your Vanguard circle, this cost may be paid with turn a card in your G-Zone face up. So if you played this on Vanguard, then you can just flip for cost. But if this is in the G-Zone, then you have to play a counterblast and put a rear guard in yourself. This has to do with more of like our other cards that we talked about, but let's reverse this stuff. So you can choose an opponent's stood rear guard and retire it, then draw and countercharge. But if you didn't retire, choose one of your opponent's vanguards and it gets minus 10k power return. This is the main reason why I made Flagburg into a deck so long ago. Is because I saw Malegnantes and I was thinking that a multi-attack deck could actually capitalize if the opponent's Vanguard's power is reduced like that. So I'll look at some combos in a bit, but so you know him, you love him. If you're in a situation where you can just win the game off him, I would say do it. I have heard some rumors that you can still stand Inlet Pulse. But I don't know, I'd have to ask a judge, honestly. For G Guardians, we got Relish Lady, you know her. We got one Morphosian and one Grisfort. Grisfort's really useful for when your opponent just keeps playing grade 1 regards or when it's Gold Pally GB8. But odds are if you're playing Dora, then they're not going to get there anyway, so those are just nice. And then finally we have 3 Quabwell. The reason why we play these 3 and then 3 Crubwell is because Crubwell costs soul, and even with how much soul this deck generates, it still uses a lot of soul. So you're gonna want options that are both free and just use Counterblast instead. Like, this is just so you have more defensive options. But Crubwell is like way better to use in terms of guard because it's 45k. For those that don't know it, let's read it. When this unit is put on Guardian Circle, Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets a shield plus 30,000. Your opponent chooses any number of their rear guards and rests them, and this unit gets 10,000 minus shield until the end of the battle for each rested unit. So, like, if you use this on the last attack in column, that's like fucking 70,000, then you can just drop this Soul Blast 1 and then guard with like one other thing, and you just guard it. It won't have over triggers, but hopefully you have Blister to rest something like that, or a Sentinel, so. But yeah, that was the deck. I'm gonna try to look at what a turn would normally go to. So let's say you're going second, so you write a Sentence Assault. Next turn, you ride Flagburg. You reveal Flagburg in your hand. Call the Sentence Assault the rear guard. And then you could discard this. You could discard this. It really doesn't matter. So let's just say you discard Interception Scissors. Really put it on the bottom. Straight with Dora. Oh yeah, let's also take like a couple cards for like damage. So you'd have like, so you would have like 3 damage at this point. That should be enough. You call in the pulse. Call Butterfly Officer. Butterfly Officer skill. You're going to give Inlet Pulse 10k. You are then going to use Dora's skill. Flip over Maleg. Then you're going to use Maleg's skill. Put Officer and Soul. And that's kind of the 1-2 combo I was talking about. Is now your opponent's Vanguard is 3 or 2k, and your ending pulse is 2300. This is in the drop down, the way I put it there. Then you would call like a booster to this column or something. Ideally, you could put like Gentle Moth in this scenario, and then you would countercharge, put it on the bottom, countercharge, your opponent can intercept. Attack with the inlet, got Soul Blast. Restand. Going to attack with Ascendance, hopefully they didn't get a trigger. Then Ascendance reads that when your other rearguard attacks a Vanguard, is your Vanguard's Flagship, Dragon, Flagburg, counter +1, stand this game. So you can literally attack with Dora. You can, well, you would have another card in Soul at this point, but you would Soul Blast another card, and then you could call Interception Scissors, and then that would be your third Soul Blast. So that would be your grade 0. Anyway, because one of those was Butterfly Officer, right? Yeah. So you would have your grade 0 still in Soul. Oh no, you wouldn't, because you called this. I'm losing my mind. But basically, you would stand high class Moth, give it 10,000 power, do your drive checks, attack with this, counter blast again, stand this, and that's just kind of the general flow, right? Like, and then you could toss Interception Scissors into your Soul next turn with Malegnantes and drop it with whatever Soul Blast you use. More importantly though, at the end of your turn, and someone brought this up to me before, so Butterfly Officer reads, when placed, rest this unit, choose up to one of your other rearguards and it gets 10k power. If you chose, at the end of that turn, put that unit into your Soul and counter charge 1. One thing I never realized is that this isn't a cost, which means that no matter where this card goes, you fulfill as much of the rest of the skill as possible. So at the end of the turn, if the total number of attacks this turn is 4 or more, you put this into the Soul and draw card. So you would take this, draw, and then Butterfly Officer's skill would still trigger, because you do as much of the skill as possible, and you would countercharge. So you're not only getting your Soul back, but you're getting a card in your hand and you're countercharging. Like, how many times did we counterblast that turn? We counterblasted like, what, 3 times? And countercharged twice. And we Soul Blasted so much. Like, it's crazy. Okay. I have you, but yeah, that's just one thing you can do. And if you Persona right, the numbers are just bigger. Obviously, your opponent could just retire your stuff and ruin this whole board, but in that case, I would say just like play your hand less hard. Maybe save some of your resources, like maybe don't just spit out an inlet pulse, spit out like a Aurora Beetle or something, and kind of focus on just paralyzing your opponent. I mean, Giraffe would be better, but if you don't have it, then yeah. Then I think there was something else I wanted to talk about. I'm not sure. But that's generally going to be your line of play in multi-attacking. And then if you're going first, it's not a bad idea to just attack with Flagburg, because if you attack 3 more times, you can just counterblast 1, draw a card. So like you play a rear guard, which maybe you get the assault skill off, so you call him and then you just call 1 card from hand. You can literally just dead on the opponent's Vanguard and you can counterblast and draw a card. The only time we wouldn't do that is if the opponent's playing Kagero or something. Something that like removes your field, because then you're just kind of losing cards for like no reason, right? Like you're not really gaining enough to really benefit that. Ideally over Interception Scissors, you would... No, you always want to shuffle back Interception Scissors if you're going to call with Dora, so you can get the restand and you can power up your multi-attackers. But otherwise, if Interception Scissors is just sitting in the drop zone, then you would want to target Inlet Pulse, because Inlet Pulse is your big attacker. Because on a Persona right turn with Butterfly Officer, that's 33k to 3k, which means your opponent has to guard with 3,500. 3,500 every time it attacks, and it attacks. You can attack like 3 times if you have an Interception Scissors to call. And you can call it from the drop zone with a Counter Blast as well, is the thing. And if your opponent has 3k and you're attacking with 33k twice, odds are you are going to get a damage off before your Vanguard attacks. This is the primary reason why we're playing Interception Scissors, is because this is a multi-attack deck. It is weaker to damage triggers, but Malegnantes fixes that because it lowers the opponent's Vanguard's power. So you have more pressure to hit, so you have more of a reason to play this card over Hell Demise. Plus it gives you more space, because if it just sits in the drop zone, you always have the opportunity to might get to use it. Just remember that you have to deal damage in order to call it, and it has to be after your Vanguard attacks. Malegnantes as well, it's an act skill. Don't forget to use it, because it's one of the best ways to get your soul back. But yeah, I do want to say I'm sorry for not posting anything in a long time. It's been a while, and I'm glad that I finally got the cards to make this build and show it off, because it's a really fun build. Stoichia is a really cool clan, and has some really cool archetypes in it. V Premium has kind of been letting us down lately in Premium Megacolony, so still having these options is really cool, and I look forward to that in the future. If you're wondering how this build might change in the future, one thing that I was thinking actually is that instead of running for Dora, we're going to be playing the new Blitz Sentinel. And the reason why is because, number one, we want more basic guards. Because Megacolony is getting more about like just placing a bunch of rear guards. So number one, we need more draw pressure. And number two is we're going to be playing the Blitz Sentinel, which is a free guard. And that'll be using your 13th grade 1 slot. If you've kept attention, my typical ratios are 13 grade 1s, 12 grade 2s, 8 grade 3s. Like it's just usually how I roll. And the number might be off a little bit, but it's about that. So I think that's a mandatory pick, because everyone's going to be striding unless you're an Overlord. If you're an Overlord player, you're going to be the only one not striding, and that's totally fine. Even then, I think we could work on some Megacolony decks that use this more, but these two are so good. Like, it's incomparable. Like, it's just way too good. And then, on top of that, if you suddenly run out of costs because you just bricked or something, you can literally just stride this. And just reduce your opponent's Vanguard power, and then you still get to do like an Ascendance Assault play or an Inlet Pulse, or you could even just attack and hit and get Interception Scissors off. Like, this deck is so flexible in your attack strategy compared to how usual Megacolony is, and it's all thanks to this card. This is a must-have. Like, this is just... Well, listen to this. I think these two are just really good. I think that this is a really good deck. I'm really glad I made this, and the whole reason why I kind of got the confidence to make this video was because when I got off of work and I went into the Discord, I was dead tired. I was just fucking tired from work because I work a night shift. And I was seeing people playing, and I was talking with people about Megacolony and how it was doing, and I didn't even think of this deck. I was just like thinking, well, like, oh, Darkface is probably the answer. But then I saw people actually playing this, and that made me really happy. Because, like, I thought of this build months ago, and I didn't think, like, it was anything. I thought it was just, like, spur of the moment, gimmicky. No one would want to play it, but I'm glad. I'm glad people have caught on to it, and that it's really fun. Sorry if I'm a little low on energy, it's just really late. I should probably go to sleep. But that was the whole build. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. If you have any questions about content, or you would also like to talk and make content, I would love to discuss and talk about stuff like this. Like, I love this build. I want to see more Megacolony builds. I want to see more gimmicky builds. I want to see more Stokia builds. If anyone has any idea about the Zorga Megacolony build, I would love to hear it. I would just love to hear it. Because I've been trying to figure out in my brain how to do one forever. Maybe I'll talk about that later, because it's pretty unachievable with just the way that deck is, you know? Or maybe you don't know. I am working currently on an overdressed deck, though, so I'll probably show that off relatively soon, because it's still in testing phases. I'm not used to overdress as well, so like I can only like test so much. Oh god, I lost it. Oh no. Y'all ever do this? Honestly. Leave a comment down below if you've shuffled your Forerunner in more times than you can count. But yeah. Everyone have a good night, good day. Keep fresh.